Truth and Reconciliation Day. This is a day made up by Justin Trudeau um, in response to the discovery, and I use that with heavy quotation marks, discovery at the Kamloops Indian Residential School.
Yes.
Kamloops Indian, yeah, residential school. Kurs. Of course, as you know, they said there was over 200. Initially, they said 200 children in a mass grave. Imagine what kind of
Yeah.
ghouls it would take to do something like that. Well, according to the media and the government, the Catholic Church,
Yeah.
um, that, instead of young men and women who had given up their lives in pursuit of a vocation to go to these far-flung places where there were no amenities in service of their Lord and the children. No, these people, according to the state, were mass murderers. But that wasn't true. And to this day, there, despite the holiday, there have been no remains found at the Kamloops Indian Residential School. Not one
Yeah.
at all. Not a
Yes.
bone, not a tooth, not a nothing. Um,
Same goes for Saskatchewan on the Cowessess First Nation, where it was reported that over 700 graves had been found, in partnership with Sask Polytechnic, which is one of our, trade post-secondary trade schools. They went in there with their ground penetrating radar. They identified over 700 unmarked graves, and Justin Trudeau came burning to Saskatchewan to kneel in a field with a teddy bear to mark these
right.
unmarked graves. Now, Cowessess first, I think the residential school was called the Maryvale Residential School, and even by small Saskatchewan graveyard standards, Sheila, like 700 graves, that is an expansive, humongous space. So anyway, I'm gonna go hunting around for some archival aerial photographs of the area to see if we can't stitch this story together a little bit better, because it just the more you learn about this story, the more you have to acknowledge this has not been proven in any
Okay,
capacity.
but even
The
with the
entire
callousness one, okay, so callousness, okay,
there he is.
there
There
it
he is
is,
on
there it
Cowessess
is.
First Nation, yeah.
Where do you think they know where to put those little markers? That's an actual community graveyard.
A Catholic graveyard,
A Catholic
yes.
graveyard. The Catholic Church knows where the graves are. These are unmarked graves, as in their headstones aren't there anymore. Their wooden crosses are not there
Or
anymore.
they may not have had one.
Had
Back in the My
right,
great-grandmother is in the Regina Cemetery, does not have a gravestone, was buried in the dirty '30s where there was
right.
no money for nothing. So no so, I mean, to say that these are all victims
No,
of abuse and or murder is wildly, wildly
the
irresponsible,
callousness
and this
one
is
is outrageous because they're like, oh my God, there's 751 unmarked graves. We know exactly where the graves are. They are simply unmarked. It included people from Cowessess First Nation, the greater First Nation area, but
and
also
the whole community.
the whole community because
Yeah.
the Catholic Church was there, the Catholic school was there. So if you find a graveyard out there in the wild, generally there's a church nearby.
Yeah.
And that's just how it worked. And so
That's
this,
true, and all children in the area went to that school. My hairdresser's dad went to a day school, went
yeah,
to the day school. So
yeah.
this wasn't just a thing that happened to, First Nations children, this happened to all children were sent to school, and yet we manufactured this entire hoax
It's
around
callousness is
this claim. It's crazy.
callousness is especially bad because they know the truth there and they're just running with it anyway. Like the Catholic Church is really great at keeping records. In fact, before your birth certificate was held by the government, the
It was held by
Catholic
the
Ch
church,
it
sure.
was held by the church, and you didn't actually have a birth certificate, you had a baptism certificate, and
That's
that was
right.
the proof that you were born alive, is that you were baptized. And so they're actually really good at maintaining these sorts of records. So the callousness is an absolute lie, but the vagaries of curse and the evil that spawned from it over 100 Christian churches, most of them Catholic, vandalized or burned to the ground in the wake of that. And Justin Trudeau and his buddy Gerald Butt saying, "I
Yeah,
understand why it happened." Sorry, I don't understand.
yeah.
I don't understand why you would burn down a church at all. But there have been no bones discovered there, and yet we still have this day today. We've got Mark Carney, of course, reflecting on this. I just want to point out one thing when Mark Carney talks about this, but
His dad.
his
Well,
dad. Okay, so I was like, what is that animation? I thought it was a chicken flying. Hang on. It says, today we reflect on the tragic legacy of the residential school system, honor the children who never returned home, and the survivors who carry their stories. As a nation and as a people, we pledge to build a future rooted in truth and equity. Okay, it all sounds very nice.
except for your dad was participating in the tragedy, was causing the tragedy? Like, are we forgetting about that, Mark? Because I'm certainly not forgetting that your dad worked at a residential school. Like, I'm not
no,
forgetting that in any way. And you know
he
what?
is. He
So
wants us to. This is
well,
gaslighting of the highest order.
of
If
course, and even First Nation is so funny, Sheila. I saw a comment online that was like from a First Nations activist who was like, "That you don't believe what they say about Mark Carney's dad. That's just something they say on Rebel News." Like, this is common knowledge. This is
It's
common knowledge. It's
common
what
knowledge. He was very public about it. He was a scholar on the subject of residential schools. And here's why I take a nuanced approach to this is because, yes, there were bad. Oh, he just looks like his old man. Um, Either it was all bad or there was a more nuanced idea of
sure.
residential schools that bad things happened, other people saw some benefit in them. But if it's all bad, then your own dad was a
Was
cog in the
bad.
machinery of
That's right.
evil.
Yeah,
And
was an evil man.
I just don't believe Mark Carney thinks that.
No, I don't think so either, and it's real convenient how he can straddle the 2, right?
Yeah.
How he can be a product of the evil that he's claiming to, have existed back in that time. Really? You're blaming your own dad for this and recognizing his evil deeds? Is that what you're doing, Mark? 'Cause it kinda sounds like it.
Yeah. Like a more nuanced approach could be like, yeah, bad things happened. Um, it
Ye
in modern times, we probably would not have done things the same way, but
but we
many
are.
people but
But we are
many
doing
people
things the same day, the same
yeah,
way. The crazy thing is that, uh, survivors, residential school survivors, their whole claim is that their culture and their identity was stripped from them, from the school. You know what I mean? The children were robbed of their identity and culture by the school and by the state. Well, kids that are going to schools in Canada right now are having their identities and culture stolen
yeah,
under the guise of radical gender theory
right,
right now in Canada, right now in Canada. Yesterday, Scott Moe and the government of Saskatchewan made a big deal about making a public apology to the people or to the students, the former students of Ile Lacrosse uh, a boarding school, I think it was. Millions of dollars paid out by the federal government. Okay, the federal government is shoveling money at these people for having their identity and culture taken from them. Well, how many billions are we earmarking for the poor little kids that are getting wrapped up in radical
yeah,
gender
start setting
crap?
it aside
You know,
now.
so best start saving.
Yeah,
Best start saving because this is the exact abuse that they claim ruined an entire, no, more than one generation, multiple generations of First Nations children. Okay. The exact kind of abuse that they claim ruined multiple generations of First Nations children is also the same kind of abuse that is happening in Canadian schools right now under the guise of radical gender. So
right.
make it make
What are we
sense.
telling those kids? That
What-
their parents are dumb rubes and
That's right.
don't have their best interests. And look at us. I'm a teacher. I'm from the state. I'm here to help. And don't do what your dumb
Yes,
rube parents think. Their
that's right.
ways are backward.
The language that your parents use is abusive. The language that your parents use is backwards. It's
Yeah.
it's toxic. It's like fill in the blank. They are separating children. There's no greater sin than separating children from their parents, and that's
Yeah,
exactly what they
for
did
sure.
then, and that's exactly what they're doing now. And to think the same government, the same liberal government that
Same
did this
ones.
in the era of reconciliation are doing it in the era of gender, and nobody is calling them on
Actually, I
it.
think even more money is being thrown at it
Oh,
now.
way more,
Way
Sheila
more.
Gunn Reid, way more, because then you add in you add in the cost of education, you have to add in the cost of healthcare, you have to add in the cost of social
Yeah.
services, of shelter spaces, where where these kids are like, "You wouldn't believe it, but when I told my parents that I was a different gender, they kicked me out of the house and said I wasn't welcome to live here unless I was coming back to reality." And so the government then funds the shelter spaces so that these kids have a place. No, send them back to their parents and say, listen to your parents, for God's sakes. Like,
Right.
it's time we start giving these petulant, belligerent children a spanking and a nap. Okay. And send them back to their parents. You were your parents to deal with until you're 18 years old, and the government needs to stay out of all of it.
Well, and the government has made it illegal for you to say, actually, no, you're not, and maybe you
That's
need to
right.
speak to somebody about that. To
Oh, that's when
speak to
social services comes in.
to
That's when
speak to
social services
somebody
comes
about
in.
that is actually illegal in this country.
Yeah.
Let's just keep moving on the
Okay.
truth and reconciliation stuff because then, of course, there's Gary and Ananda Sangari.
Mm.
Uh, Go get him, Tiger. Gary and Ananda Sangari, our public safety minister,
Mhm.
who cannot deal with issues of East Asian gangsters
Right.
because of his relationship with the Tamil Tigers to the point where the Sri Lankan foreign ministry was like, don't sign those nomination papers back in 2014, Justin Trudeau. But Justin Trudeau, um,
He knew better.
he
He knew
he
better.
wanted the fundraising from the Tamil community.
Sure he did.
So he sold us out for the fundraising dollars to the Liberal Party of Canada and the reliable votes going forward. Because there's no other reason why someone as stupid and as inept as Gary Nandasangri is in this very important position. And Mark Carney knows that. Like there's everybody, there's no, there's the talent pool is quite shallow on the Liberal side. But there were other options than Gary Nandasangri who
Yeah.
had to recuse himself from South Asian, crime files, like, for sure. There were other
How?
people, but they're like, "He's the man for the job."
He
Um,
knows. He knows how the criminal networks work
I guess
'cause he's
he has
part
some
of one.
just expertise on that side. But anyway, Gary says, "Today on National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, we honor those who never came home, survivors, their families, and those affected by residential schools. May we reflect, listen, and commit ourselves to the ongoing work of reconciliation." Okay, that's delightful. But might I tell you that a very similar system is occurring in China right now, and these guys continue to do big multi-billion-dollar deals with China that
Mhm.
should be done in Canada. So to the Uyghurs and the Christians, but like the Christians, they just rewrite the Bible and they appoint our bishops and do terrible things like that to us. But the Uyghurs, so a Muslim minority that is very far away from the extremist Wahhabist mosques. They sort of are developed in isolation over there.
Mm.
Very peaceful. Their children. So their women are being forcibly sterilized. The men are being taken off to work camps where they'll make your Nikes for you. And then the children are being taken to residential schools where they are, sound familiar, stripped of their names, given Chinese names, and then not allowed to speak their mother tongue
Holy
and
Hannah.
are robbed of their religion. They have their Qurans taken away and they are taught the state function of atheism. So there are residential schools for little Uyghur kids in China, and Canada has no problem doing business with these guys while scolding Canadians for some sort of generational wrong that I didn't do. I didn't do it.
Right.
Well, right now, this is happening in China, and we are sending billion-dollar shipbuilding contracts to these people. So I don't care about anything Gary and Sangri has to say on these issues.
Me too. Seconded.
Okay, great.
Next.
Bang the gavel, move on. Daniel Smith, I'm prepared to listen to her on this because we've actually created an entire government agency. Um, I think it's the Indigenous Economic Opportunities Agency,
Mm,
something like that. Anyways, that couples Indigenous bands with oil companies and helps them develop their resources to end the dependence on government and generational poverty in their own communities, because
incredible.
oil and gas is in their communities. You don't have to go to Edmonton to get a job anymore. You can work in Fort McKay and make $200,000 a year. I think it's a delight. So let's hear what she has to say. Today on the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, we honor the survivors, their families, and their communities. We honor the painful history of residential schools and commit to the work that follows listening. And that's action. Okay, I'm not mad about that. Um,
Okay.
okay. I would also add excavation,
Right.
but
That's the one thing that's missing from this entire thing.
let's hear what
But,
deceased. Sorry, go ahead.
Sheila, like, in the new
Mhm,
country, okay, in
mhm.
the new country, we're not gonna have colored shirt days. We're not gonna have, national holidays that look like this. We're not gonna participate in this tomfoolery. We're gonna just all be neighbors, okay? Good neighbors and friends. We're just all gonna work together. But this insane focus on what happened 150 years ago is not going to be at the fore. Okay, we're going to be so busy planning our future that we're going to have no time to ruminate in this way in the past, because it's not good for anybody to ruminate in trauma. It's no good for anybody to constantly just wallow in
I don't like
this
it.
pity. It doesn't help communities. It doesn't heal. It doesn't heal generational hurts, and it doesn't forward our communities. So
Well,
yeah, in
well,
the new
and
country, we're not going to do this.
part of truth and reconciliation is the first part, truth. Let us. I will acknowledge wrongs have been done, but I do want to know the extent of those wrongs, and no one is getting there.